What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the newest episode of the Believe in Oregon podcast. I'm Zachary, Neel. Wow, I still don't know that I've recovered from that one. I don't think I'm alone either. Goodness, a 16-13 nail biter. The Ducks got it done over the Wisconsin Badgers. It was ugly. It was disjointed. It was frustrating. It was confusing. It was strangely encouraging. I'll get into that later. What other adjectives? Resilient, gritty. I could go on, man. This is not going to be a long episode, but like usual, I want to get some of my biggest takeaways from the game, highlight some players who stood out, and then kind of look ahead to what's up next for the Ducks. In this case, that's a bye week, a much needed, a well-earned bye week after 8 straight games, all against conference opponents. To start off, if you didn't catch the game, just a quick breakdown first. Oregon's offense was they struggled. I think I could put it accurately that way. The offense did not look as good as we've seen them at times this year. It looked pretty similar to other times how we've seen them. It's just like if you imagine Oregon's third quarter offense throughout the season and just kind of applied that to the first, honestly, the whole game. There was maybe a couple drives in the fourth quarter where they looked a little bit better, but it was just not a classic offensive performance for the Ducks. Defensively, very good. That's a different story. The defense really came to play in this game. There were a couple drives where they gave up points, gave up a lot of yards, but for the most part, this defense was incredible on Saturday night, and they really won this game. But back to the timeline of events for this game, Oregon's offense struggled. Only one touchdown on the night. They 3 field goals from Atticus Sappington, really good. The Ducks went up 6-0 early. They went into the half down 10-6, though, after giving up a couple of plays and the offense just stalling out, not being able to get anything on the ground through the air. Had an interception in the red zone, once again, from Dillon Gabriel, his 4th of the season, which was frustrating for a lot of people to see. And then again, another scoreless third quarter for Oregon, which is their 6th scoreless third quarter of the year out of 11 games. You can do the math, not very good. They turned it around in the fourth quarter, though. They tied the game with the touchdown from Jordan James in the fourth quarter, went ahead with another field goal from Atticus Sappington with, I think, 2:36 left on the clock. Was it 2:36? I forget. I don't know when that last one went. That last field goal was from Sappington. I forget the time on that, because then they had a chance to push it to 19-13 with another field goal, but they went for a fake field goal and did not get it. Ross James, the holder, and the punter took it up the middle on a run on 4th and 4. Did not get it. I'm of the opinion that if you're going to go for it, why not leave your Heisman Trophy contending quarterback on the field and try and go for it instead of putting the ball in the hands of your punter? That's just me. However, Matayo Uiagalelei sealed the deal with an interception on the next drive and got the 16-13 win. Okay, where to start? Let's actually start right where we left off there, and let's start with Matayo. This dude is a star. It's been kind of, we knew as a freshman that he was really good last year. Seeing what he could do last year as a true freshman, it's like, all right, this guy's definitely something. Watching him early this year with Jordan Burch on the field playing alongside him, it's like, yep, all right, this guy is a really good player. Watching him on the field without Jordan Burch, and you hate to see Jordan Burch sidelined with an injury. He will be fine. Today was, they're holding him out for more precautionary reasons. They know that they had the bye week. They want him ready for Washington in week 14, then the conference championship, and then the playoffs after that if you make it there. Back to Matayo, watching him step up and just kind of be the guy for this Oregon defense. He is in the backfield every single play, and if he's not, it's probably because he's getting held by the offensive lineman. He does it all, man. He had 5 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and then that game-sealing interception. The best thing about him, too, he's got another year, at least. He's got 2 more years of eligibility if he wants them. He's got another year at Oregon before he goes on and is likely at this point, it feels safe to say, is a first-round NFL draft pick. He's playing like that right now. If he continues to ascend in the manner that he has so far in Eugene, yeah, there's no reason to believe that he's not going to be a first or second round draft pick for the Ducks. Could be as soon as after next year, could be 2 years if Oregon is lucky enough to keep him around through the would that be the 2026 season as well. Main takeaway from this night is that Matayo is an incredible player and he's been a ton of fun to watch. Next takeaway, style points. You know what? Just like in Whose Line is it in next point, style points. You know what? Just like in Whose Line Is It Anyway, the points are made up and they don't. What is it? Next point, style points. You know, just like in Whose Line Is It Anyway, everything's made up and the points don't matter. Style points do not matter in this game. They absolutely did not. You just needed to get the win. Like I said earlier, the truth is, 8 straight games, 8 conference games for Oregon. They are the only Power 4 team in the nation to have gone through that schedule. It is incredibly grueling. They have not had a bye week since, what was it, late September, I think was the last time they had a week off. So they've been playing endlessly and they've been on the road flying across country. I think they've had 3 long distance trips in that time. They came up with 8 wins. And so, I mean, they did everything you wanted them to do in that time. They got the 8 wins, but they need a bye week very badly. They're banged up. They're tired. They're mentally drained. They've got a lot of travel, a lot of miles on them right now. So in this instance, like the style points do not matter. I don't care how they won this game. If I'm going to be honest, like this type of win may be a little bit more impressive to me than a blowout would have been. If we're talking about the value of a win, strictly the value of a win. I know Oregon fans would have liked to see a blowout and would have liked to have a little bit less stress on their Saturday night than they actually ended up having. But I think if you're talking about a value of a win, this is what you want to see more. Oregon is the only team in the nation to have 3 comebacks of 6 points or more in the fourth quarter this year. That matters. I would rather have a team that is tested and has had to dig deep for a win rather than someone who wins every game by 21 points and isn't tested until December. Jay Stu and I have talked about this a lot on the podcast that, the Idaho win and the Boise State win, those are important. Those matter because early in the season when, some teams are playing Mercer or Appalachian State or, as Oregon has before, Portland State, they're blowing them out and they're not really learning much about their team. Oregon, they faced some of that adversity early in the year. They faced some of that tonight, and they really had to dig deep tonight and figure out who they were and how badly they wanted to win this. I think back to last year with Washington. I mean, we saw last year with them. They didn't blow out all their teams. They won some really close games late in the year. Yeah, we, as Oregon fans, absolutely, we made fun of them for it a few times that, oh, you can barely beat Washington State, or I think it was Arizona State, maybe Stanford is who it was. Those close wins matter in the end because, that really tests the team and shows them that, hey, when you get into December and you face some of these really good teams and you get put to the test, what are you going to do about it? And, these Ducks know now what that feeling is like and how to kind of dig deep and find that extra gear and, come out and get the win. So this Oregon team knows how to fight now. I think we've seen it time and again this year. This was another game that proved that. I think this is a really, really good test for them. I think it's going to pay dividends down the line. Real quick, before we go forward, I want to give credit to Atticus Sappington. I've mentioned him a couple times already. He was 3 for 3 on field goals tonight. The really important makes. I know that was probably the last thing that Oregon fans needed to help their blood pressure through this game is having an Oregon kicker, need to be relied upon for important kicks and, massive field goals to win the game. But credit to him, man. He stepped up when he needed to. There's a ton of kicker trauma in Eugene, and you feel it every time a kicker runs onto the field. He stepped in a major way tonight, so credit to him. Let's talk about Dylan Gabriel and Tez Johnson a little bit, but mainly Dylan Gabriel. This team and this offense confuses me a little bit. I don't know if it's a fact or a result of them playing possum and being really good at playing possum, or if this offense really misses Tez Johnson that much. They looked really sloppy at times tonight. They did last week against Maryland too, but I think that we credited that a little bit more to not having Tez for that first game. You'd think some of that would have been alleviated tonight because you have more time to work without him. You have more time with Evan Stewart as the number one. Your offense should look a little bit better. It didn't, though. We mentioned that red zone interception from Dylan Gabriel. He missed receivers for the night. He threw a really bad hospital ball to Justice Lowe over the middle that got him hurt and knocked out of the game for part of the game. It looked disjointed. It looked like it wasn't the Ohio State Dylan Gabriel. It was more of like I said, the Maryland Dylan Gabriel or the Idaho or Boise State Dylan Gabriel, that it just wasn't what we'd come to expect from this quarterback so far. He wasn't like that throughout the whole game, though. He also had some really, really good plays to win this game, both with his arm, with his legs. We talk about that 4th and 9 play call to start the fourth quarter for the Ducks, where Gabriel, they're down 13-6 at that point. 4th and 9, Dan Lanning leaves him on the field. Gabriel scrambles, finds Terrence Ferguson for one of the best passes I've seen this year from this Oregon team. Just absolutely threaded the needle between 3 defenders and found Ferguson to keep the drive alive. They go down and score the game-tying touchdown. So, I don't know what to believe at this point. At times, this team can look so bad and so disjointed on offense, but they've always come back and made it work in the end so far this year. They've always managed to do that. Are they just fooling all of us? Do they know how to play just well enough to win, but not well enough to show us their tricks? Are they that good at playing possum that it's like, we're all the idiots for doubting them at times, and then they're just going to go on a tear and, win the national championship, knock on wood? I don't know. Like, I just find myself so confused by this offense because at times they look so good. But, then other times, like in the third quarter of every freaking game this year, or just, multiple drives every other week, they look terrible. They just confuse me a lot. But in the end, it doesn't matter because they're winning. So who am I to question them? But as someone who does this for a living and wants to know what I'm talking about, I would like to have a better feel for this offense. But after tonight and after last week, and there's just been several times this year where I'm like, man, what am I watching? Because I don't have answers for why they look so bad at times and can look great at other times. Maybe they've really found that on-off switch and they know when to turn it on and when they can coast. I don't know. We're getting to the point in the season, late November, where, coasting time is almost over. You're not going to be able to turn that switch off much going forward. So I want to see things be a little bit cleaner, just a little bit more buttoned up going forward. But, as long as they keep winning, who am I to complain? What else? Penalties were bad again. Unfortunately, not as bad as last week. Last week, 12 penalties for 95 yards. This week, 7 penalties for 55 yards. There were a lot of tough calls, to be fair, to Dan Lanning and his staff. There was, off the top of my head, 3 or 4 penalties that had absolutely no business being called whatsoever, whether it was holding on Josh Connerly. They had one defensive holding on Derek Harmon where he got double teamed and tried to split the double team and kind of like grabbed the player as he was falling down. But it's a play that happens 50 times a game, it's not a penalty, and they flagged him for a penalty. And then there was the defensive delay of game for erratic movement from Matayo Uiagalelei, I think they got called. So, I mean, both sides, there was calls on Wisconsin as well that they could complain about, as well as I think they got called for a chop block on one of their final drives that, negated a big first down when they were trying to drive to tie the game. So I think the refs in this game were awful. Both sides have a ton to complain about, but there were some things that Oregon did, false starts, a couple of holdings, pass interference that, those have to be cleaned up. Like I said, with the offense, we're getting late in the year, end of November, start of December. You can't be having these little ticky tack calls. You can't be giving up 55 yards of penalty yards and expect to win a game. So going into the bye week, that's something that definitely needs to be cleaned up. I'm sure I can't say I'm sure it will. I hope it will. I think it was a little bit better this week than it was last week, but last week was still incredibly shocking, and I don't think that we've really forgotten about that. So I'm curious to see in 2 weeks against Washington how much penalties are a factor, because it's it's something to know. Once again. Let's talk about jump around. This was cool. This was a cool note after the game. Oregon fans obviously know what shout is at Autzen Stadium after the third quarter. It's, I don't need to explain it on here, but Wisconsin has their version of that, which I think has been going on much longer than Oregon's, where they sing, who is it? Where they sing Jump Around by House of Pain after the third quarter. It's a really cool experience. If you don't know what it is, look it up on YouTube or something. It's, it's awesome. It's like Shout. It's very, well respected, well known around the nation. Very cool experience. It's also something that usually can kind of rattle an opposing team, just because it's one of those things that, when it's happening, you're kind of focused on that and you're not focused on the game plan or anything. What was cool for Oregon fans to see tonight is that the Ducks joined in on Jump Around. They weren't focused on the sideline on coaching and their game plan and stuff. They were dancing around, they were jumping, and they were kind of getting into it with the crowd and enjoying themselves. That's not something you normally see. You don't see opposing teams come into Austin and just participate and shout. It's just, it's not what you do as an opposing team. So to see Oregon do that, it was like, okay, that was interesting. And then they come out in the fourth quarter and they start with a ton of energy, and they get that 4th and 9 conversion in the first play of the quarter. They score the touchdown a few plays later, and they go on to win the game. So Dan Lanning was asked about it afterwards, and he said, yeah, that was he compared it to their Pavlov's dog moment, where they knew they wanted to get the energy from that. And when they heard that song, he said, it's go time. It's time to go. Some of the players said that they'd been playing that song in practice throughout the week, so they'd kind of just been preparing for it. They knew it was going to be a major source of energy, I should say, in that stadium, and they wanted to capitalize on that. I think that's just another example of Dan Lanning being Dan Lanning and finding a way to motivate his guys and kind of steal some of the energy from Wisconsin. I know they aren't really taking it away from Wisconsin, but capitalizing on the moment, that's something that Dan Lanning is really good at. Wisconsin players get a ton of energy from this. It pumps them up. It's a huge moment in their game, just like it is, like Shout is for Oregon at home. And, Oregon just kind of took advantage of that and said, hey, we're also going to get fired up from this, and we're going to start playing a little bit better too. So maybe not a huge deal. Maybe we're reading too much into this, but I kind of saw that and saw Dan Lanning's quotes afterwards, and it's like, yeah, man, I would usually, if I were a coach, I would probably tell them to tune that out and not focus on that and kind of focus on the task at hand. He went the other way and said, hey, enjoy this. This is awesome. This is a cool college football experience. Get the energy. Let's go play harder. So credit to him, man. That's a bold coaching move, and it really worked out for him. Last thing before we get out of here, I want to clear up the Big Ten championship game clinching scenarios. I'm not going to get into the scenarios because, to be completely honest, I do not know them. Hand up, I thought that with an Oregon win tonight, Oregon clinched a spot in the Big Ten championship game. I tweeted that after the game. I published an article saying that after the game. And then I was contacted by the Oregon SID a little bit later saying, hey, they actually did not clinch it yet. The Big Ten just gave us word that, there's a couple of tiebreaker scenarios between Ohio State and Penn State next week that still need to play out before Oregon officially clinches it. Those scenarios are, I'm told, incredibly unlikely. And, if I were to give it a percentage, Oregon has like 98% clinched a spot in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game. I would also like to point out that I was not the only one to run with, they've clinched it. I saw CBS Sports and a couple other outlets also, posted, hey, they clinched a spot in the title game. Not just me. I'm not just the only idiot out here. I'm just one of many. So we will wait until next week to see if they for sure clinch that spot. I think Oregon fans can feel really good about it. If you have booked your tickets to Indianapolis like I have, I would not cancel those anytime soon. I think you can still feel really good about going there on December 7th. We'll see who they play. It'll likely be either Ohio State or Indiana, and those two play next week. So the winner of that game will most likely make it to Indy to face Oregon, assuming they get in. This is probably the last time that we have to use this asterisk. But yes, it's likely to happen at this point. All right, I think that's it for now. I will be back on this week with Jay Stu. I think we will only be doing the one show on Tuesday and then taking next weekend off. I'm not sure just yet, but we'll let you guys know. Until then, though, you can check out more of my work at duckswire.usatoday.com. Follow me at Zachary C. Neel on Twitter. Follow Jay Stu on Twitter at JonathanStuR1, and make sure to check out the Believe in Panthers podcast and the Stu and Crew podcast. For myself, Zach Neel, for my co-host Jonathan Stewart, we will talk to you guys next week. Until then, take it easy.